Sunday. Today is Father's Day. So I just want to say a big happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there who are holding it down and taking care of their children. Those who are not, shame on you. And also to all the mums as well who's playing the dual role. So happy Father's Day to you guys as well. So kicking off the show, we've got less numbers on this week. Liran can't make it, but we're waiting for a gel. She'll be coming and joining us soon. New to the show for the first time, so I'll introduce you first is Emil Goliath. I'm sure that's not your second name, right?
It's not real, but it works well. People ask me about it, so we'll go with Goliath.
Give a rundown to everyone, what you do, what your background is, etc.
Yeah, of course. So background is as a medical doctor, graduated or qualified, started working in 2011, and then got disillusioned with the modern healthcare system. It was kind of getting people back to a very normal baseline. And I was more interested in getting people above and beyond that to the next level. So I left full time in 2015, started my journey as a coach and entrepreneur. And the last 5 years have been a whirlwind of craziness and awesomeness. And I do a lot of work coaching high impact individuals, a lot of Amazon sellers in their nutrition and health. I also have a supplement line on Amazon myself and like to travel around and, practice what I preach, basically.
Sounds good. Let's move to you, Stephanie. You were here with us last week, but do you want to do an introduction?
Yeah, so I'm Stephanie. I'm not a doctor, but I have a lot of history of trial by error. So I've been kind of a diet addict for 12 years, landed on intermittent fasting being the most sustainable and healthiest of the diet fads out there. What was I going to say? I have no idea. I don't necessarily believe in keto because I don't believe that you should not eat fruit and vegetables. But I believe in a general low wheat, low carb kind of lifestyle.
Yes.
Been selling on Amazon for a year and a half now. I'm currently manufacturing and bringing out a new nutraceuticals line for entrepreneurs specifically so that we can maximize brain power, alleviate, stress issues, sleep better, and also cure hangovers before they start. So that is what I'm up to. And I also practice what I preach. I'll never tell anybody to do anything I haven't done before. And happy to be here again.
Excellent. And over to you, Anne.
Hello, I am Anne. I am an Amazon and e-commerce seller. I am definitely not a doctor. I live in Costa Rica, and I found that my health and general addiction to food really changed when I got here. I'm also a proud vegetarian and definitely not keto. My diet is probably 90% carbohydrates, carbs, fruits, and vegetables.
Cool. What I want to kick off with today, from my point of view, I had a bit of a breakthrough. I explained to people on the show I have issues with brain fog, and I eat a vegan diet not out of choice but out of necessity, right? And it's been trying to work out what's causing this brain fog, etc. So on Sunday last week before the show, I had a bulletproof coffee. Prior to that, I'd had like mycotoxin-free coffee, then introduced Kerrygold butter, and then had coconut oil, and that set it off. So that spurred things on again. And then I sat down with my consultant. He's based in the US, very good guy, Evan Brand. You could look him up on YouTube. And when we were going through bits and pieces together through the situation I have with mold, right? There's a specific one called ochratoxin A. And so basically that is when you've got exposure to within buildings that's got water damage, etc. Like we can see it's come up on the wall in like old derelict buildings and stuff, and also via food. And I think one of the things that for me, and the reason why I love keto, but I can't get back into ketosis because it causes issues and brain fog, is because what he said to me is that when you've got mold, it mobilizes fat, right? So that goes towards possibly one of the issues. The second thing is as well is that food can be contaminated and with oxytocin A as well. And so what happens is the food that are fed to poultry and other animals. So what I'm trying to get to is that I was having dirty keto diet because I didn't get grass fed or anything else. And I was eating thick cheese with like 4 eggs cooked in coconut oil and like bacon, lots of bacon and with melted cheese and stuff like that. But I never went down that route of
bacon with melted cheese. That sounds pretty intense.
It's like literally. Do you know what I used to use? Like I used to eat about this amount of broccoli and basically dose that in coconut oil because I used vegetable as a fat carrier. Literally, that's how hardcore keto I went, which is wrong for me. And that's why part of the reason I'm struggling is because if there's in that poultry or in those, like the feed and the stuff, and I was eating more of a dirty keto diet, then the issues would have exacerbated on top of what I already had. Therefore, it got worse, but I could never get to the bottom of it. Now, once I cleared this, I'd love to go back to keto, but I'd love to do it properly this time. And I'd like to do it the right way. So what I'm saying is, I know that, Stephanie, you don't agree on keto. This show isn't about everyone singing from the same hymn book. This show is about opposing opinions. So it gives you a 360. So that was a little discovery for me this week. I'm a big fan of keto, but what I'm saying to the audience, and I'm not a doctor, is just speaking to my guy. I think the hypothesis there is like, if you're going to do it, try and do it properly, get grass-fed meat, and make sure that you've got a good source of your meat, and don't do what I do, actually have some vegetables with it. Although you want to keep below 50 net carbs or whatever, there is still opportunity to have vegetables, not tomatoes and stuff, but broccoli and stuff like that. If you space it out right and you've been into keto for a long period of time, you're less likely to be knocked out of ketosis. And don't just use vegetables as a carrier, basically, for fat. Anyway, that's my little bit on the keto side of things. Emil, I'd like to come to you first, being the actual proper doctor who knows about this shit, and not us who would just make it all up as we go along. So what is your take on the keto diet?
So yeah, great question. Just to clarify, I'm not a doctor of nutrition, I'm not I'm a medical doctor, so I've got a lot of background. I do have a sports science background as well, so anyway, and I love experimenting with this kind of thing. So my take on keto, it's a way of eating that works well with some people. There's a good way of doing it and a bad way of doing it. A lot of people don't need to do keto for their goals. If their goals are simply fat loss or increase in energy, you don't have to do keto. But if you do want to do it, all for that, give it a shot. So I've tried it in the past. I did blood tests before and after. I did finger prick ketosis measuring. And if you want to do keto, I highly suggest that you check your bloods, because you'll be surprised what you can and can't get away with. And for me, that allowed me to max out my vegetables. I'm a huge fan and proponent of vegetables. So I was eating keto, but eating as many vegetables as I could while remaining in ketosis. My basic view on this kind of stuff is you want as little restriction as possible in your diet to achieve the goals, because that's going to give you the most chance of sticking to it. If you start limiting things willy-nilly, you're going to struggle, because the more restriction, the harder it is to stick to. So that's my basic principle. If you want to do it, give it a shot, but be open to doing other things as well. And just one more point, you can do any diet properly and you can do any diet dirty. You can do, you can do, good vegan, or you can do vegan with all the junk foods. You can do good keto, or you can do keto with bacon and cheese, to use your example, with donuts on, not donuts, other stuff on top. Same with any kind of diet.
Exactly. Stephanie, why are you opposed to keto as an example? It doesn't have to be keto, it's a low carb in order to get into the state of ketosis, right?
So for women specifically, I would believe that we should be in cyclical ketosis, not ketosis all the time. As people with a reproductive system like this, it's not good for a woman to necessarily be in ketosis on a consistent basis. But more so, I'm a huge proponent of intermittent fasting. I get into ketosis every day. And a lot of my foods are low carbohydrate because I eat mostly berries, broccoli, asparagus, things like that, where I'm not getting a ton of carbs all the time that are gonna like hike my glycemic index, but I am like coming out at one point or another, whether it be with like an apple or, you know, chips and salsa once in a while or whatever the case is. I go in and out every day because as I intermittent fast, I drop back in.
Yeah.
So it's, and I like to work out fasted as well, which really drives it even further. So I'm not opposed to a low carb keto lifestyle more than I am against the idea of bacon and cheese. And I think for women specifically, it's really
it hurts my stomach thinking about that.
Yeah.
I actually it says I wish vegetables smelled like bacon. Like it's better. It tastes better. It's more rewarding in the moment, but long term, it's going to kill you. So I just think that for women, we need to keep in mind that like we need more carbs from a good source. So if you're going to do low carb with that in mind and vary in and out of ketosis for your health. So I'm not against it necessarily. I just think that there's certain things to keep in mind because as entrepreneurs, we generally go extreme with everything.
Yeah, you push the boundary. Yeah.
Right. And it always goes
Are you in this dirty shit keto diet like me? Yeah, go on.
I've actually gone from keto to vegan, like almost immediately. And I'm crazy like that. And that's fine. But I've actually thrown myself in the hospital a couple times because I take things to the extreme. So it does teach me that like you need to understand balance and you can say I do low carb and eat a sweet potato in the same day. Like there's a balance that needs to be
Agreed. And let's bring you in. What's your take?
Okay, I'm going to get on my soapbox for like just a minute because I feel pretty passionately about some of this stuff. And the main thing, I think Emil hit the nail on the head of like the less restrictions, the better. When I lived in London, I was trying to eat low carb, doing the South Beach diet. I had results, but I thought about food all the time. Like I would go into the grocery store and drool over bread. Like it's fucking bread. Like who cares, you know? But I was drooling because I said no. And so, and I think what we as humans really have to get back to is just listening to our body and eating whole foods. You know, the things that are addictive are processed foods, fat, sugar, and salt. Those are the things that your brain goes like, whoa, my God. And that really gets you addicted. For me, when I moved to Costa Rica, there's not really junk food available. I mean, my grocery store is teeny tiny. And just out of lack of other options, I started eating whole foods. I mean, we have amazing tropical fruits and vegetables. And not only did weight just kind of like fall off, but that the biggest thing was my addiction to food went away. You know, I stopped thinking about food all day long. And now, you know, when I travel, I will eat what I want, but my only thing that I do, which comes naturally now, is I eat until it's full. And when I'm done, which is always at like about a third of the plate if you're eating in a restaurant. You know, the portions are so huge. And I think that it's really important to be conscious about what you're eating. So I am a vegetarian. I'm probably mostly vegan. I also don't put a label on it. And I never thought about being vegetarian in my life. And when I was pregnant with my son, my desire for meat went away. And I just listened to my body. And I found it really interesting that it happened when I was pregnant, because a thing that happened to me when I was pregnant was I kind of started really listening to myself. It was like, you know, my body was doing all this work. It started talking to me, you know, and it would be like, you need to eat some carrots today. And it was like, my body's trying to tell me the way to be the most healthy to grow another human. And it was saying, don't eat animals. And I thought I would go back to eating animals when my son was born. And I had a bite of my ex's steak, and it really it felt like flesh to me. And I was like, oh no, not going back. And
it's adjusting to that tactile feel, isn't it? Like it's very odd when you do go back and you eat meat again or fish. The texture feels very odd to you. Yeah. Yeah, totally.
And when I was pregnant with my daughter, I was vegan, and I didn't want to be. I was still nursing my son when I got pregnant with my daughter, and I had to be in the kitchen all the time. I've since been able, but I tried to eat eggs and it didn't work. I've since gone back, and if I have a craving, so if I'm in a restaurant and there's nothing vegetarian, I will have fish. Every 3 or 4 months I get a craving for meat, and I go to this place that I really love and I have a burger. They have really good burgers. I go by myself with my dog and I stuff my face. But so only he sees me. I eat it in like 2 minutes. It's so good. But I think it's just really, I think we need to get back to kind of listening to ourselves and stop saying I'm doing this or I'm doing that. And, you know, the meat that you're eating, Danny, what you were saying about dirty keto is so important, because if you're eating grain-fed meat, then that's sick. Those are sick cows. Cows don't have a stomach for meat. So you have to pump them full of antibiotics so they don't get sick. They're giving them hormones. So you're killing your immune system. And all these hormones are making you fatter as well. Yeah. But then if you're eating grass-fed meat or wild-caught fish, grass pastures are why they're cutting down the rainforest. So I think it's a really tough decision. But if you want to live in line with, if you're a person that cares about the environment, that cares about how animals are treated, you know, maybe try to eat meat a few times a week instead of having it at every meal. You know, it's way better for the environment. Cows pollute our waterways, our ozone.
They have
everything.
Stomachs. That's so gross. They like literally fart consistently. But
no, I mean their cow farts are destroying the ozone more than all
cow farts are destroying the ozone.
No, that's literally true.
I know.
Nothing. It's 100% true, Danny. Google it. Okay. More so than every airplane and car.
Yeah.
And on your point, the whole in a box thing is where like all of my crazy dieting led me to be. Because I'm like, I'm not a vegan. I'm not a keto. I'm not a carnivore either. I eat meat. I probably eat like chicken or fish like once a week. I eat steak or burger or carne asadas like once or twice a month. And the rest of the time I live off of like tofu and vegetables and whatever. And it's like, I don't want it, but I'm not any one thing.
Yeah.
You know, and the environment is huge. And packaged foods on top of that are the other thing that's killing the rainforest.
Yeah.
Because they need palm oil for everything.
Sorry.
We're going to save the world, Danny. You didn't know that's where we're going on this call.
One person at a time. Emil, we're bringing the good doctor. Right. So, Emil, talk to us from your perspective. You've dealt with hundreds of people. You've dealt with meal plans, I'm assuming, not just exercise, nutrition, and covering the full spectrum, right? What have you found is the best way to balance this? Because people go, oh, you know, like we discussed here, there isn't a right way. There's a wrong way to do keto, which is I did, but keto is not always relevant for women because the different hormone structure and everything else becomes an issue, and some people cannot do keto, right? So it's not suitable for people. So how do you identify which diet and which regime works best for that individual?
Great question. And, you know, first off, what Anne said about not labeling ourselves, that's so important, because the second you label yourself, you arbitrarily restrict what's going on. You know, what you're going to consume, what literature you're going to read. So avoid labels. Do you, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And then from the point of view of, you know, say if I have a client come to me, what I do is I start with the absolute basics, the foundation. As I said, I want to avoid restriction as much as possible. So if someone is overweight, ultimately they're eating too much, right? You can go into the fine details and everything else, and that's down the line. But first, I need them to ideally move a bit more and eat a bit less. So until we've got these things nailed and they're doing it consistently and they're going to do it for the rest of their lives, I'm not going to restrict them any further because there's no need. Next, I might say, okay, let's try and improve quality. Let's try and eat some vegetables for each meal. Let's try and eat some protein for each meal. This is the language I use. I don't want to say you need to eat this, 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 and this, because that will blow their minds. Yesterday they were eating ice cream and burgers. Like, just eating a little bit less ice cream and burgers is a step in the right direction, right? So I'm about behavior change. I'm about people changing their lives. I'm not about imposing a structure on people. Down the line, we might start suggesting things. Intermittent fasting, I love it. A lot of my clients start to explore 24-hour fasts, intermittent fasting, but I let them come to me with it. They say, I don't like eating breakfast. Great, let's try skipping breakfast this week. maybe I heard about fasting for a whole day. Is there benefits? And I was like, look, if it helps you sustain your diet, your plan, your health, and it's not causing you any problems or issues, let's give it a shot. Let's try it, and we'll touch base on the weekend and see how it went. So that's how I go with things. I'm never going to say, right, let's roll a dice. Here we go. You're keto. Next, you're vegan. We're going to cut out all vegetables and go carnivore. It's like, right, let's start and build up the base. And most people, we don't even get that crazy far into restriction because just these basic changes have huge impact. So that's how I work. I try, as I said, as little restriction as possible.
Yeah, that's brilliant, Emil. Because like if you do that, you're going to find them in a closet shoving cookies down their face, or it won't last long. But if they see the results organically without having much change, they're going to want to go further. So that's I'm going
to say, sorry.
You could write the most perfect diet plan for someone, literally perfect, and if they don't follow it, they're back to the burgers and ice cream, and it's pointless. So I'd much rather implement one change which is hugely suboptimal, but still a little bit better than what they were doing before.
It's a win, isn't it? Work on a win.
Exactly.
Get the small wins first. I'm going to say some hellos. So Sing's here. He says, good morning all. Tiffany's here. Good morning. Happy Father's Day to all the dads. Don't forget the mums as well, Tiff. Matt, give Anne Ferris a star. Tiff is always learning interesting facts on the show. And Sharon says, I'm from New Zealand. The 30 million sheep who will fart and kill the ozone layer in New Zealand. Brandon's here.
Fact.
Owen.
It's a fact.
It's a fact, is it? It was on Google. Amit is here.
Really
Chip
is. No,
is here.
it really
Kevin
is,
Lippy's here. Asad's here. Trevor's here. Alexandra, Anna, Saddam, Matt again is here. Roberto is here. And we also have Alina here as well. Who's this from? So Owen's saying, hey, Danny, why do we not tell people about way plant-based foods protect your body and how digesting meat releases free radicals that attack your body? There you go, Owen. You just got your stage. You just explained that to the world.
Well, I think I'll just jump in a little bit. It is plant-based foods in diets where you're trying to promote healthy cells. I'm not saying everybody doesn't need to be vegetarian or vegan, but definitely if you're trying to get healthier, having way less percentage, like 10% of animal protein and the rest being plant protein, does help activate your cells. And that is why if you go to in all alternative cancer therapy programs, the first thing they do is put you on a vegan diet, because that helps your cells to activate and regenerate and helps kill off cells that aren't healthy and keep healthy cells active. And eating meat when you eat meat, you're eating the same with plants. If you're eating potatoes that are not organic, you're absorbing, or wheat that isn't, you are getting a lot of those pesticides. In animals, you're getting everything that was, number one, put into the grain that's fed to those animals, which is they get the worst, highest pesticide, lowest quality grain. And then you're eating, the things that they've given to that animal. And also, especially if you live in the US, cows and chickens have it's not a very nice life. And those animals are under constant stress. So they're producing cortisone. So you're eating all of that. So you're eating all of those toxins. So if you want to eat meat, I think it's just important to consider where you're getting it from, and also just how you make it feel. I think, everybody has kind of said different styles of eating work better for different people. Low carb is like such a rage for me. When I tried low carb and I was eating more meat many years ago, I felt really run down. I think for my body, a higher carbohydrate and low fat diet works really a lot better for me and gives me a lot of energy. If I eat something that's high in fat, whether it's good fats or bad fats, I just feel like heavy and uncomfortable. But everybody has a different metabolism. Everybody has a different body. So I would say don't do something that the diet says it's right if it doesn't make you feel good.
Yeah, I think that comes down to as well is like if you've got an autoimmune disease and your health is deteriorating, you're often hungry. So something like fasting or a very low carb diet works to your advantage. But if you don't have any issues with a hunger hormone that's in out of balance or whatever, then a low fat diet and etc. can work because your body's functioning normally as it is. I think that's where adjustments come as well, is that you've got to look at the core. So some people try and fix their health through diets, but they need to fix their health and then eat the right diet along with it to aid that. Would you agree, Emil, as well?
Yeah, health is definitely multifaceted. Diet is one part of it for sure, and it's a big part of it, to be fair. But if you don't look at sleep, stress, illness, medical illness, and exercise, or just movement, then you're not looking at the big picture. And what I would avoid is, one, extremes, and two, building a tribe or a camp around your ideology, because it automatically shuts you out to everything else. And then you consume information within your tribe. You don't look at new information and new opportunities, quite frankly. You know, as I said, I tried keto, I've tried vegan, blood test before and after, because I'm interested. I want to know. These people are fighting and shouting on social media, and I'm like, this can't be the truth. And actually, an interesting thought experiment: read a couple of books about carnivore, read a couple of books about vegan, follow a few carnivore people, follow a few vegan people. Honestly, the arguments for are identical. The arguments against are identical. You just swap meat for plants. They both have environmental arguments. They both have inflammation arguments. They both have illness, free radicals, everything. And I'm not siding with anything. I'm just saying that it's very easy to pick information to suit what you want it to suit. Just be open-minded. That's me.
Yeah, I agree. Throwing it back to you, Stephanie, like, talk us through some of the extremes that you went to. You mentioned that you'll go from one extreme to another. You hospitalized yourself, twice, which is crazy. Let's have a quick chat about that, because like you said, people can go way too far with stuff to the extreme.
Well, you know, it started in my early 20s. I discovered exercise came first. It was, I had to remove the idea of a diet over the years and realize it's a lifestyle. Like, I hate the word diet. I think it's ridiculous, because that puts an end date on it, right? So you always end up reverting back to bad behavior. If it's a lifestyle, it's eternal. You know, as long as you're here, that's how you live. When I first went to the hospital, I got obsessed with protein shakes. I started going to the gym. I was like, ooh, these awesome prepackaged protein shakes. I'm just going to like drink them all the time. And I found out that they were filled with like lead and mercury, and like it was muscle milk. And I was like, they tasted great, but that doesn't mean anything.
Well, yeah, because you'll get gut dysbiosis from that as well, because you've got one sentiment of nutrition and food coming. It's consistent, so you need to feed that good bacteria, don't you, in your gut? So
that was episode 1 to the ER. And then a couple years later, I did the same thing, but with vegan and juicing. I went down the road of like, after the protein drinking, nightmare, they were like, oh, you have celiac disease. And I was like, well, did my antibodies show that? Did my blood show that? They were like, no. I was like, so I don't have celiac disease is what you're saying. But they were like, just like, don't eat gluten. I was like, that's a terrible answer, but fine. So I had pizza that day to just see, and I was fine.
So you like authority then? Yeah, I noticed.
We're big time. So I went down that road, and I was like, all right, I'm just going to be more mindful of what I put in my body, because that scared me. So I switched out a couple things for like, rice-based or potato-based instead of gluten. And I just became more aware of adding nutrition to my diet. And then I saw Food Inc., the documentary, when it came out. And I was so grossed out. I couldn't even grocery shop. I was like, everything has corn in it. We're all going to die. I'm not eating that. Like, the baby chickens are being murdered. So then I was a vegan, like for a year, a little over that. And then, when you're in your early 20s, you always think you're fat, even when you're not. And mine wasn't about being like healing a vessel. It was more just about, I want to look really good. So I was vegan for a while, and then I was like, I feel fat, so I'm going to juice after that. So I did a 10-day juicing. About 6 months later, my hair was falling out by the piles, because I didn't replace any protein in my body. that entire time because I went extreme. I didn't do research. I didn't replace the protein with anything.
What about electrolytes as well? Did you get damage from that from 10 days of juicing and not replenishing?
I didn't, actually. I think the juicing really didn't matter after the year of being a vegan and not eating any protein sources at all. So it was just hair shedding, end up back in the hospital again. And then after that escapade was over, I was like, oh, keto sounds good. Because you haven't learned anything, so let's do that next. And I was just like, sure, that sounds great. And I did keto, and it worked fine for me the first time. A couple years later, tried it again. I couldn't get deep into ketosis like I could before. And I was gaining weight at like a rapid scale. I was like, okay, so something in my body has changed since my mid-20s to my 30s that's telling me this is not meant for you. So everything as time went on and yoga was introduced into my life, and I was more aware of like just wanting to be healthy versus wanting to be thin. I realized that I liked intermittent fasting, started following David Asprey for a while, and then started getting into biohacking. So now I have stacks of supplements. I intermittent fast, I low carb, I'm half a vegan. Sometimes I want steak. And it's like this crazy large balance of all the things that I learned over the years because I kept taking it so far that I learned a balance because that's how I work. I have to just run and go, and then I come back and like tailor it down.
Well, they say you learn through pain. So you put yourself in the hospital twice from two extremes. And But no, but you do though. I think most people do. It's like generally, it's like you do something, you do it again, you mess up, and you go, "Why do I keep doing it?" And then when it's a devastating impact on you, I think that really shocks the core of his system, and it's almost in your brain. I'm never doing that again. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it was a mind shift. It was like stop trying to be thin or skinny. Stop trying to look a certain way. Like I'm 5'3". I'm an Arab. Like I'm meant to be a little thick, and like I had to get over that. So that when I discovered yoga and I became empowered by the idea of strength and like doing all these cool things, my vision of what I wanted for my body became different, and I started eating for that. I started eating for my ideal self instead of
for that booty stuff.
So
I don't think you guys haven't seen Stephanie in a bikini, but I have. So like you should listen to her because all of her advice is good because she's got a true peach, perfect peach.
So from a peach to those that are sitting in front of their computer getting a Microsoft tan, the biggest problem I think with Amazon sellers is most of the time they're already in almost like a COVID isolation anyway. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but Emil, you speak to everyone, right? They're in a room, maybe this size, a bit smaller, a bit bigger, or they're on the road. They're in front of a laptop or a desktop, and they spend most of their time 6-7 days a week running their Amazon business or related Amazon businesses, whether it's a service-based business. It's a very, very unhealthy lifestyle, and it's hard to pull away when you're scaling and when you're in the zone and all you want to do is work. But then that has diminishing potential down the road because the effects of like not getting natural daylight and vitamin D and all those kind of things, and suddenly you realize you haven't left the house for 5 or 6 days. I used to be the same because you're growing a business, you're just intent. This is especially worse if you live in a cold climate. It's Q4 and you've got your head down and you can't even think about taking a break. What kind of damage can you see long term where people are not looking after their health, like Amazon sellers, with that in mind?
Yeah, I mean, it's huge, but there's two things there. You know, first, by not looking after your health, you're less productive in the short term.
Yeah.
You're working 12, 16 hours a day. Let's be honest, it's not deep work for 16 hours. You know, they say we've got 4 hours of deep work a day, you know, whatever the number is, it doesn't matter. But 16 hours, you're not constantly smashing something out for that time. So by looking after yourself, you will get more work done. It's a transition to figure that out, but it's 100% legit. Now, the other issue is that people get into this mindset where they say just one more sprint, just one more year, just one more goal that I need to hit, then I'm going to sort out my health, then I'm going to look after it. Now, I've worked with multiple people who have exited, and 8-figure exits, and that is apparently the end goal, right? nothing changes. Nothing changes. I promise you, nothing changes. There's still the work stress. There's still no time. There's still, I'll start exercising after the next thing. The mindset needs to change rather than something material in the real world. So wherever you are in your business, whether you're starting out, whether you're, exited, or whether you're in the thick of it, you need to start making change now. It doesn't need to be extreme. It doesn't need to be night and day. It doesn't need to be keto or vegan. It just needs to be every hour. I'm going to walk to the shop, get myself a bottle of water and walk home. I'm going to try and eat some vegetables with each meal. Like, just think of one change that you can make, which you can say, I can do that for the rest of my life, probably. Doesn't have to be crazy. And just do that. Start there and keep layering it on. And that's how you need to do it. Otherwise, you will die young.
Yeah.
Like, all the evidence says that whatever dietary philosophy you follow, if you eat crap food, don't exercise, and are stressed all the time, you will die earlier, or get ill earlier, or both. And it's as simple.
Well, it leads to long-term disease as well, isn't it? It's the short-term. 8 years go past, you're eating the same crappy diet, you're sitting indoors. You see when people retire as well, they die a lot earlier if they don't have anything to aim for in life. Like, I think it's 15 years people have gone by there. They sit in that chair, they get a newspaper, they're smoking, they're drinking, they're watching TV all day. Suddenly, their health gets really, really bad, doesn't it? And then they diminish. So you need to make sure is that there's always a level of momentum and doing stuff on a healthy basis. Steph, like, obviously you work out a lot. I won't refer to your behind. I've not seen it. It's none of my business. So I take it you do a lot of exercise. It's not so bad for you, right? But with someone like Anne, do you do a lot of exercise, or you just naturally slim anyway?
I don't do a lot of exercise now. I used to. I am not naturally slim. I think I am. I was never. I'm 38, and I was never as thin in my life as I am now. And I work less at my diet and at my exercise than I ever have. Now, I don't exercise often, as in going to the gym, but I have 2 children. We go to the pool. We go to the beach. I have a Belgian Malinois who needs a lot of exercise. He doesn't look like it right now. He's passed out on the floor. But we went to the beach at 5 o'clock this morning. So I think, it's about finding balance. I do exercise when I get the chance. It's just telling Stephanie, if there's ladies watching, do yourself a favor, like, sign up for the free trial of the class, theclass.com. That's all it is. 2-week free trial. It is really in your mind. You need no equipment. You don't even need shoes. All you need is a mat. But it's repetitive exercises that make your brain uncomfortable, and then you get over it. And it's a really mental workout. But yeah, I think it's really important. I find I have to have a reason to, like, get out of my house, because it's true. If you run your own business, like, I love it. I love working. And I get really excited to, like, wake up. I wake up at 5, and the first thing I do on the days I don't have my kids is go to my office. And sometimes it's like, it gets to 2 o'clock and I'm like, shit, I haven't gone outside today. And I think it's just, again, about trying to be conscious of what you're doing. I say a lot in the stuff that I put on my social, that I come first come my kids, then comes me, then comes work. You have to prioritize yourself, because you are more important than your business. You are more important than any of the money that you're ever going to make. So, you got to do, if exercise makes you happy, exercise. Before I had kids, I loved exercising. I went pregnant with my son to yoga 7 days a week because it felt good. Now, like, I'm tired, and the things that I do for exercise is more like walking, going to the pool. I have a horse too, so I ride my horse. But it's like, don't push yourself to do things you don't like, but do things you do like to be a happy person. Because if you're happy, you're going to be more creative when you go to work. Like Emil said, if you really push those few hours. Emil, you, like, really speak the truth. I like you, dude. You could be my doctor anytime.
I try.
I just made myself blush. I don't really mean it like that.
Sorry, Anne, were you flirting there? Anyway, moving on.
I wasn't trying to. I'm sorry. Can you eject
Eject you. Gone red again. Right. Some Kata said, so important to know one personality type before you start a new diet or follow a craze. Mental health and sticking to the way of living, nutrition-wise, is a direct link. Detoxing the crap we ingest, had a direct impact on our mental health, which is true, which ultimately reflects the sharpness of our brain, equal good business decisions. Yari says, hello. Tiffany says, what Andy's saying is so true, especially if you love what you do. It is easy to neglect self-care. Okay, so you got over your flirting end.
Great.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, Steph. Steph, can you have a word with her upstairs? She's upstairs, just above you.
Yeah. You have to do your exercises or whatever makes you happy.
Yeah.
At the time of day you want to do it. Like, I feel like a lot of us put our brains in almost like a 9-to-5 mode where you have to work until a certain time. I don't know about you guys, but I feel that way. I'm like, oh, I can stop working when my husband's day is done.
Yeah.
He has a corporate job. That doesn't, I end up going back to my computer after he goes to bed. So that's not accurate. So for me, I started walking my dog first thing in the morning. I make breakfast. Sometimes I go to the gym, and then I won't start work until 11. And then I'll work for a few hours, and then me and my dog will go for another walk. We'll go hiking. He'll get a bath. I come back. I work from 3 o'clock to 6. Then I stop, make dinner, and then I go back to work after my husband goes to bed at 9 or 10 p.m. And I'll work till 1 in the morning, and then I do it again. But you don't have to just stay working the entire time. I find that life balance is a joke. That's not a real thing. And you have to work and live in balance every day. So work, focus, and then leave and go do something enjoyable. Go for a walk, go do whatever you want, and come back later. Your work is going to be there for you when you get back. It doesn't have to be done all day long every day.
That's the amazing thing about this business, right? That if you are in e-commerce or Amazon, you can work whenever you want. If you're most productive in the morning, work in the morning. If you're a night owl, that's an actual thing, right? And people's brains, that some people work better at night, some people work better in the morning, and you can't really change that if that's the type of person that you are. But that's the great thing about doing this. You can work when you want. So take advantage of that.
For sure.
Exactly. So Kat says Annie's always flirting, and Steph does have a peachy booty. She's in Georgia after all. And Emil, you're a cool doc. Danny, congrats on making Anne uncomfortable. Is normally the other way round, which is true. I normally have to adjust the settings on the lighting here for the saturation when I go red, because she embarrasses me on the show a few times. But I'm learning.
I know. Where's my books? I gotta go get my. Get in control of this situation.
Not them books. Not them books. We'll get taken off air. If they see them books. Right, Emil. Back to you. Let's talk, because we were talking about last week. We were talking about fasting your way to a better brain. This week we're talking about eating your way to a better brain. But we haven't actually really touched on foods. Talk to me about some power foods that people can just introduce into their diet, like certain vegetables, etc.
So that's an interesting question.
Yeah, go on. I've muted Anne. Yeah.
There's a lot of, you can't go by on the internet without reading an article which says eat blueberries to sleep better, eat dark chocolate to do this, red wine to do this, whatever. There's always something. And ultimately, it's not about power foods. It's not about X will do Y, because if there is something in a food which will do something, it has been made into a supplement and is being marketed as a supplement, because that's what we do in a capitalist world. We optimize stuff and sell it. So generally speaking, I wouldn't, if you like a food, blueberries, whatever, great, eat them. Don't eat them for a specific effect. The biggest impact for specific effects like energy, sleep, all that kind of stuff is by nailing the basics consistently. And like the other guys have said, that is about building a lifestyle and not following a diet. It's about doing things like, going to bed on time, moving regularly, eating vegetables, all the other good stuff. And that will cause all of these positive effects that you want. As Anne said, it's not about, exercise is a misnomer. It implies, getting sweaty, jogging, training in the gym. It's just movement we're after.
Walking the dog or whatever.
Honestly, as cavemen, we used to move. We used to climb trees, chase, saber-toothed tigers, whatever. And in absence of that now, we use the gym and we do yoga and whatever. But actually just moving is what we're after, not sitting.
Yeah.
It is essentially, it's being sedentary is bad. It's bad for you. So try not like standing and whatever else. That's going to be the key. And the other thing is lifestyle design. You know, as the guys have said, I would wager that a lot of people get into Amazon entrepreneurship for freedom, and actually they find themselves tethered to a business, and actually their health deteriorates, and then they're tethered to bad health. Whereas you have the opportunity to create the perfect day every day. What is the perfect day? Define it for yourself and then create it tomorrow. You can do that. You know, you can go to the gym between 2 and 4. You can work between 8 and midday. You can tailor this much more than so many people. So empower yourself to do that. Write what your absolutely perfect optimal day would be. And for most entrepreneurs, that is working at some point, because, you know, we love the hustle. But find that balance and start to move towards it, because that's going to be the rest of your life. And that will give you the most energy doing something that you're passionate about in a balanced, healthy way.
Yeah, and you'll be productive when you do.
For sure, 100%.
I think that really helps if you write it down like the day before as well. If you write, okay, what is it that I have to get done tomorrow, and then what are the things that I want to do, and what's kind of a schedule. I'm not talking about scheduling every minute of your day, but having kind of an outline. At least for me, that really helped. I got into a stage where I was kind of spending too much time looking on social, and some of it was for business and then some of it wasn't. And then I found I was checking my email and checking my Amazon stuff, doing the things in the business that weren't really on the business, because I didn't have a plan for my day. So something would come in and I'd be like, oh, I'll do this now. And when I started structuring, it also means you plan what are the important tasks working on your business that you want to get done. But then also you make sure that you think about and you schedule in what are the things that are going to make you happy that day, you know, whether it's going to the gym or whether it's, you know, going to a kid's softball game or, you know, whatever it is. But if you schedule it, you're way more likely to do it.
The other thing I learned, we're going back to the food things, and, you know, something I've woven into my life recently is organic vegetables and produce. And what I learned over here, one, it's not expensive. And two, a lot of, if you go and speak to like we go to local farmers market down the road and get ours, the cost of the license to be add the legislation behind it for organic is about 200 grand a year. So there are actually a lot of organic produce, but doesn't have the organic label if you speak to the owners of the business, because they're in there sourcing anyway. So I'm effectively most days eating organic produce with no pesticides and stuff like that, as long as the guy running the place isn't fibbing and telling lies. And I steam those vegetables, and it's so easy for me just to break them out, even by wash them, break them and throw them into the steamer. 12-14 minutes later I've got a meal. Sometimes that's quicker than that packet shit you pull out the freezer and stick it and nuke it in the oven for 25 minutes. Does that make sense? You know, so it doesn't have to be tough, and it goes back to weaving that into your day. Make it an everyday routine, but don't make it high, and they're not barrier to entry. It's not like all this massive prep. You know, get the veg, put it in the steamer, throw it onto the plate, add some butter or whatever you do. It's pretty straightforward. So Owen says, sorry, Danny, but organic food is expensive.
Depending on where you get it.
Of course.
Yeah.
If you're buying it at Whole Foods, yes. If you buy it at the farmer's market, it's summertime. Hopefully farmers markets will be starting, or at least online ordering.
Between 24 and 30 pounds a week I spend on veg from the farmer's market. So it's £30 a week, say, right? It's £120 a month. Most people food bill, what, 150, 200 pound a week in the UK?
Oh yeah. And honestly, it's like, we weren't meant to have tomatoes all year round or whatever we want. You have to just find local and seasonal produce. Yeah. And there's a 90% chance it's going to be organic to some degree. Yeah. And it's going to be a tenth of the cost because it's coming from a local farm and there's no markups. So
yeah. And you, like you said, when you buy produce like that, just at the moment, it's on the cusp of asparagus going out of season. I managed to get the last bit today through the farmer's market that he sourced.
Asparagus is so good.
It is good, but then eventually that's going to go, and then I'll have something else. But the diversity, like the colours and the richness, when you like, I'll take some pictures and I'll show next week. But having like cauliflower that's green, right? Not white, green, and purple cauliflower as well, and black carrots. It's like when you see that all on your plate and you've steamed and you taste them, like it can't even go up against, frozen broccoli or whatever, and you nuke it and it's just like watery shit. It's horrible, isn't it? There's nothing quite like really good quality food, and you appreciate that when you sit down and eat it.
What I would say is we're all health freaks, just from what I've gathered from meeting you guys here. And for Owen, I don't know anything about him, but let's look at this as a spectrum and a slider. The optimal would be a huge variety of seasonal organic vegetables on a regular daily basis. That's the perfect.
Yeah.
At the moment, we might be on hamburgers and ice cream. So let's start by adding some vegetables. They can be frozen, organic, whatever you can get is going to be an improvement. And actually, for someone who is doing nothing, adding something is like 1,000,000% improvement. And then going from there to organic is more incremental. So, don't use this as a huge barrier to entry, like organic or nothing. Let's start with something, with anything. And especially in the States, in the US, it's more extreme, like the difference. But in Europe, we've got pretty good standards for both meat and
it's the
vegetables.
pesticides, isn't it? The biggest thing I think with anything is not necessarily about being organic, it's the pesticides. If it's pesticide free, it doesn't really matter what the label says. That is a good jump in the right direction, isn't it?
And a lot of times, just focus on the top 10, the worst absorbent fruits and vegetables to pesticides. You don't have to get everything organic, but like strawberries are a terrible one. So like get those organic.
Potatoes. You can Google, I think it's called The Dirty Dozen, and it's a list. So it's, if you're going to buy only some things organic, these are the best things. Things that are absorbent or you don't take the skin off: potatoes, milk, and I can't remember what else is on there. But that's a great way if you want to kind of like do some things organic, but you don't want to do all of it. And I do agree. I know from having lived in London and the US, vegetables in general and organic in Europe, there's not as much of a difference. In the States, I think it's a political thing about subsidizing, companies that are making processed foods. So there is a big difference in price, especially in supermarkets. It's also going to branded supermarkets. Somewhere like Whole Foods is going to have more expensive organic product. You can get organic at Costco, Publix, like whatever is the bulk retailer. And I mean, go to farmers markets, like it's summertime. And I think you can also find, I just ordered for my stepfather for Father's Day, meat delivery from this really small, organic pasture, grass-fed farm in the US, in Illinois. So you can find online local farms if your state hasn't opened up yet.
And it is a bit more expensive to buy online, and with obviously shipping, you're going to lose a little bit of time with the freshness of the vegetables, and there's a minimum spend, maybe £50 over in the UK. So boxes of organic fruit being sent to you, I agree, is more expensive. But if you can, and it's within 3 to 5 miles, generally there is a farm shop in not central London, but in a lot of places, you'd be surprised. In 3 to 5 miles, you could probably find a farm shop if you looked, What was I going to say? Right, so we're coming up to the top of the hour now. Let's get some passing thoughts. So, Anne, 3 things that you would suggest for Amazon sellers when it comes to food to increase their productivity.
Collagen hydrolysate in your coffee. Eat less meat. Less. And have dessert sometimes. It'll make you happy.
Emil.
My 3. So I'm going to keep them really basic because that's the key. If you are carrying a bit of extra weight, then try and eat a little bit less. That will help. Eat vegetables. I go for 3 different types with each time I eat. And the third one, move around some more. And that's not really food, but it'll make a huge difference to your life, to your energy, to your mood, to everything.
Yeah. Steph?
Remove the word diet would be number one. Don't lock yourself down to a certain amount of hours to work. Go outside. And I would say start introducing intermittent fasting and black coffee as your breakfast at least a couple times a week, and see if your brain fog doesn't lift or you just have higher amounts of energy. Yeah,
that's good. I would say from a negative side, don't do dirty keto like I did, and just go all in. Get the right produce. If you're going to do anything, eat right. If you can get grass-fed, eat grass-fed. That will pay dividends later. The other thing is, I'd say, don't go to the extreme either. And like you said about calling it a diet, don't call it a diet. It's a lifestyle change. So when you add it in, don't think about it. It's going to have an end date on it. It's actually going to be the rest of your life. That's the way that you got to address it. So that's it from me. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. Steph, if people want to reach out, how do they reach you?
You can find me on Instagram or Facebook. DM me anytime. I'm always around for questions, or if you just want to shoot the shit.
Okay. And?
Instagram, moondancer.puravida.
Lovely. And Emil, it's time to get some more Amazon customers. Explain what you do quickly and how they can reach you.
My friends are the best.
Yeah, so best bet, I'm Emil Goliath on Facebook. I think there's only me. So check me out. I can help you if you're struggling after lockdown to get into shape. If you don't know where to start, then I can help with that. I've worked with a load of Amazon people. I know what the lifestyle is. I live the lifestyle as well. So hit me up. I'm super happy to talk. I love talking about it. And usually people have to tell me to shut up. So
cool. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back here 4 p.m. BST tomorrow. Take care. Stay home. Stay safe. Much love. See you then. Bye.
See you guys.
Thanks, guys.